In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.
All right, welcome to the new JFK show number 164. We have Judy Baker once again, and she's finally getting the hang of everything. We've got a PowerPoint all lined up, and she's going to take us through it. We've got Larry Rivera really dodged a bullet tonight. There were 185-mile-an-hour winds, and it missed Puerto Rico, and we were really legitimately concerned for Larry, but the hurricane, though, did devastate some other areas. Larry is okay, and he may even join us tonight. So we're going to go ahead and let Judy take over and tell us what's in store for us tonight.
Oh, dear. Well, hello, everybody. I think some people have heard some of my interviews, but others haven't. And mainly, a lot of information has come out since the book Me and Lee came out. And what's nice is that the book, a lot of the information in that book, slowly but surely is being proven by other sources, whether it's witnesses or like we have some new secret files that have come out that verify. So I thought we'd start, and that Gary will help me here. I'll just say, Gary, please move to the next slide.
And Judith, you know, many students of JFK aren't aware that Ed Haslam, for example, thoroughly vetted your story. You can read about it in Dr. Mary's Monkey. Nigel Turner thoroughly vetted your story when he did episode 8, The Love Affair. CBS was ready to go with a 60-minute segment. They thoroughly vetted your story until a political decision came from the top, canceling it out. I'm sure that was a directive from the CIA.
They actually canceled 3 times, if you can imagine.
Yeah, because the real newsmen wanted to do the story, but the people at the top who were being affected by the CIA didn't want it to go out because you do so much to humanize Lee and make it obvious he wasn't a lone demented gunman.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we can in full screen.
Here we go. All right, Judy.
All right, that handsome guy on the left was the man I fell in love with, named Lee Oswald. And most of the photos you will ever see of him, unless they've retouched them or something, he's got a smile, even from the time he was a little child. We even have a picture of Lee with all kinds of little kids with a real mean-looking teacher. And he's one of the only ones that has a sunny smile on his face anyway.
So I realized that when you said it, that most of his pictures were doctored to make him look more sinister. It's just amazing.
Well, they couldn't do that, though, with live film. So let's go ahead, and the reason we have People magazine here, Jack and Jackie, is very important. This is for the 100th birthday of John F. Kennedy. Of course, we'll have the conference coming up, and we're going to really honor John F. Kennedy at the conference there in Dallas, November 17, 18, 19 at the Crown Plaza Hotel. And it's easy to reach by JFK DallasConference.com. So here's this photo of Jackie and Jack, and what's interesting is when you turn the page, because they're telling about their life, and it says the shots rang out in Dallas. You turn the page, and I'm just, oh no, I'm just scared to look. They don't say another word. They know that this is a souvenir edition is coming out, and it's going to be hanging around for 50 years. I think they don't want to be embarrassed. So for the first time, we have a major magazine, okay, that doesn't say that Lee Oswald shot anybody. It doesn't mention it, that he shot him. It just goes, it just says shots, rang out in Dealey Plaza. This is such a nice approach because they don't want to look like fools 50 years from now, all right?
And I take it, Judith, there's a word missing from the title here inadvertently in preparing the slide.
Yes, because the pictures got in the way. Lee Harvey Oswald and the template for evil, to make him look evil. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Let's go to the next slide. I'll try to go a little faster. This is a good example. By the way, since I pointed this out here, let's see, am I able to? Yeah. When I pointed this out, these photos have been doctored again. This is one of the photos where it's supposed to, John McAdams says, I wonder if he's making a communist salute here. Actually, this is a still shot, a quick still shot that was made at the same time a film was made, when reporters are asking, let's put it this way, today they're handcuffing little kids, okay? But back then it was unusual to see anybody come into the police department handcuffed. And a reporter said, are you handcuffed? And he raised his hand quickly. And they took the pictures just that fast. Well, what they did then is he was actually frowning. You blow this up and you can you see my little arrow here?
No, you cannot.
Okay, well, look at the picture on the right-hand side and you'll see that he's really frowning. But what they've done is they've retouched it so that it looks like, yeah, he's the only man in the world that's frowning and smiling at the same time. But they made a drop, that's a drop of whiteout. Can you see that little drop of whiteout? Yeah, they dropped some whiteout. Now, I used to be the staff artist for Steck Vaughn Company, Steck Vaughn Publishers in Austin. I had to work at retouching old black and white photos and things for their history books, because they produce history books for high school and everything, college and so on. So I was very much aware when I saw that dot what that was. That's whiteout. They were in a hurry, all right? So let's go on to the next slide.
But the word you have there, Judith, is one that was repeated over and over again. His smirking, the idea he was smirking.
Smirk. We're going to look at it again. Now, here's the same exact moment that the other one was taken by another camera, because they're going flash, flash, flash. Now, there you see there's no smirk at all. You can see he looks disgusted. And this has not been retouched. You'll also see a ring on his finger and a small, it's hard to see the bracelet, his ID bracelet, that will be taken from him. But that ring is his Marine ring. Now, Lee told me that was his Marine ring. Robert Oswald claims everything. He claimed it is his, and that Lee, he gave it to Lee. So,
I'd like to ask you questions about Robert, Judith, because it seems to me he betrayed Lee. He may have even impersonated him on some occasions. I believe Robert was in on it.
Well, it's interesting that, for example, Robert has Lee's suit, his handmade suit. I guess, CIA didn't want people to know, FBI certainly didn't, that Lee, when he was at Atsugi, Japan, they were having him consort with some really beautiful women over there, Japanese women, who were high, they were very pricey ladies of the night, all right? To the point that they liked him so much, he actually was bringing him back to the base. They said, how can he do this on $50 a month? And he's sending some of that money home to his mother. Well, he even had a handmade suit, all right, with his name, embroidered inside. Robert Oswald put that suit up for auction, like he's done everything else. We don't have time to talk about Robert Oswald this time right now, but I'm going to tell you a heck of a lot about him at another time. At the conference, we're going to talk about the Paynes, because the Paynes are the ones really behind what happened with Robert. For example, They called him. A lot of people don't know this. They called him and said, Robert, guess what? We found a camera over here. Now, you've heard that he found the camera in the garage, at the Payne's garage. No, they made a telephone call and said, come over. We have found a camera. And, of course, this is they're supposedly found this camera that took the backyard photos, okay, in the garage after the police had been through it with a fine-tooth comb and even took Lee's flip-flops and everything else you can think of, you know. So it's just the most absurd and ridiculous. But that Imperial reflex camera, I've got so much to say about it, but I have to save that for the conference. Let's go on to the next slide. Here again, you can see the difference. This is close up. You can see the lie that was created. I call this the template for evil, how they change him to look like, oh, ho, I'm so happy I killed the president. Let's go on. Next slide.
Well, it's worth looking at these photographs to let your point sink in, Judith. So,
right.
I think we have
so many slides. We won't. Yeah.
How many do you have altogether?
Let's just go on because I didn't have a chance to count them. Here's one that's very famous. It's shown all the time. This looks like he's grinning. Oh, I'm just so pleased with myself, right? But when you blow this up, you can even see it better. You can see the mark where it really was frowning. See? You can put the little arrow there on the corner of the mouth.
Like right here?
Yes. Now look on the other side. It's been drawn in. His upper lip has been drawn in and everything. By the way, his chin has been drawn in to be a square. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But you see, it's this. Look at the face in the middle there, the middle face. And if we put the arrow right on that edge of that mouth, you can see it. See how it's been drawn up? It really was going down. See?
Yeah.
He's got the weirdest mouth in human anatomy because nobody else has muscles that can pull your mouth up and down at the same time but him. And now the real truth is they couldn't retouch the stuff on TV. There in the corner, you know, on the right-hand side, Lee is frowning and they couldn't hide that, could they? Okay, let's go on, huh? Here. Now I showed you that one drawing, or I should say photo, and it's on the left now. See where the mouth has been created again to look like a smirk? But what they have done is they've drawn in the chin, and they did the same thing on another photo to the right because they want it to look like the backyard photo.
Yeah.
See? So there you can see it. Why did they make his chin square? They drew they drew it in. All right.
Yeah, he always had a cleft.
Yeah, they really made it black there, but they were able to do that because there was a natural shadow there, but they have just done everything they can to make it look more square. Okay, let's go on to the next photo because the only photo I could find that showed his chin in a kind of a square is that one there from a TV shot, and it's only because of the shadows the way they are. Here you can see his real chin. You know, there he is in Lee looking very sweet. And when I see this, my heart aches because he's trying so hard to hold it together. Can you imagine what he went through? If you knew everything he went through, because I've looked at his autopsy. And by the way, Dr. Wecht is looking at his autopsy too. We have found marks all over his body that looks like came from a cattle prod. So we're looking.
Really?
Yes. And
that he was tortured.
Yeah.
While in police custody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can. I really. I need to get through this without crying. So let's go on. So anyway, you can see the pointed chin, and of course here again, you look at he's surrounded by all these people. Can you imagine what he was up against? He cannot say, "I'm CIA," because if he did, the contacts that he had made in Russia, in Minsk, and places like there were CIA contacts there, they would have rounded them up and executed them just to show that they were not anti-Kennedy. You know what I'm saying? He could not say, they knew he would never betray them. He knew it. They knew it. So all he could say is that he was a patsy. Look at the crowd around. Imagine what he went through. Okay, let's go on. Oh, by the way, on the side it said they put makeup on his face. When they finally did the autopsy, they had to wipe makeup off of Lee's face. His face, as Marguerite Oswald observed, was covered with bruises. All right. So here again.
You mean they beat him? They beat him up too?
They were hitting him in the face a lot after he was in custody. We have some indication of that because Wesley Buell Frazier says that Captain Fritz came in and was, raised his hand and his fist. He was going to hit him right in the face. And Wesley said, if you do that, he said, I'll make a fuss. He said, I'll defend myself. He wasn't in handcuffs, right?
Yeah. He said, I'll get a few licks in, he said.
Yeah. That's right. So, and now that when Marguerite said all these many bruises on his face, and he said, because he didn't want her to feel bad, he told them, nobody's hurting me now. This just happened then. That's not what I find out when we know that Vincent Drain was asked later, his special agent, FBI, was in charge of a lot of the evidence files. He was asked to look into the fact whether or not the Dallas police had abused Lee Oswald. Well, he never gave the report out when they said, what, tell us about it. He said, no comment after looking into it.
No comment.
That's right.
That's pretty cowardly.
It's pretty callous, isn't it, really, too? All right, here's his fingers. This is famous. You can again, I worked myself with a lot of retouching photos, and there's something called zipatone, or anyway, you can cut. They had to, apparently, when they took this picture, the first one, they liked it, but the newspaper there had to be slipped in under the hand. Apparently, he was holding something else at that time. Who knows? But anyway, they had to, when they cut that, to slide that in underneath, because it's cut too. Here's how you can tell. Now, this is a very small thing, but it proves that this newspaper was cut out and actually placed in. Look, please, next to those square cut-off fingers, you can go ahead and use your little arrow to see everybody sees the cut. Now, move along the edge of the newspaper, please. You see those there? You see those marks there?
Yeah, here.
That means that was cut out and put in. Newspapers don't have that, of course. They have a straight edge. But if you're going in a hurry they used to use these knives, okay, to cut with, you can catch sometimes on the edge of the photo and turn it a little. And there's where the back of the photo was, and it's, as you can see, it's been turned a little, and that was cut out. That shows it was. Okay, let's go on. And again, here, this is famous. We have originally the rifle. Of course, now, Jim Fetzer, you know all about this. You know what sling mounts are, but for people who don't, I mean, you could tell everybody what a sling mount is.
Well, sure. It's a bracket where you attach the sling to the rifle, and there's going to be one on the butt, and there's going to be one on the stock.
Right, you need two of them, and it's for different reasons, depending on when you're going to fire. Because I used to do guns. I mean, you can help it, help to with the rebound and all that. And anyway, on the right-hand side, we have the sling mount there. If you notice, it's underneath, and it was a rope. Okay, so he can change that. But on the left, we have the sling mount, and when it's hanging there because it's on the bottom.
And on the side. I think Jack found there were at least 3 different Mannlicher Carcanos that were alleged to be the assassination weapon.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. And we can also detect when somebody's lying, like we have what's his name? Robert Morrow said, "Oh, I had to go and drop off several Mannlicher Carcanos, for this thing." That's the most ridiculous. When I was in New Orleans, I mean, I went in a gun shop. I mean, cause we did all kinds of things I haven't talked about. They had a barrel there filled with the things. Did you know that? Right in New Orleans. They were on sale like for $6-7. They could hardly give them away. And he's going to go and mail order one and make a paper trail and keep the Heidel ID in his wallet and all the rest.
Yeah, it was a key element in framing him for an offense he didn't commit, yes.
That's what they did. Anyway, you could have gone downtown in New Orleans, let alone anywhere else. I'm sure in Dallas the same way. It had a barrel full of Malachite. So anybody saying, oh, somebody gave me 3 of these so I could take them over to Dallas. Are they kidding? They were all over the place. I was there, so I'm telling you that's the way it was. And why did I even notice them at all? Because they were on sale, and I ended up buying myself a .22 caliber revolver eventually in Gainesville because I was afraid. So I've always noticed guns all my life. I've shot my first when I was 8 years old. Okay, let's go on to the next. Here is something interesting because in 2003, which was one of the anniversaries, you saw this backyard photo, but guess what they did? They took some of the shadows out around his head. See that? Now that went all over the internet like that. Why? Because you can't have shadows coming from 2 different directions.
Yeah,
can you?
Good.
Yeah. So they're still doing that now. I mean, that was 40 years later, and they're still doing. That's power, folks. When you have that kind of, this is a template for evil to make this man look like he was doing all this stuff. By the way, we had David Von Payne, who is an acolyte, of McAdams. He said, oh, I have found a photograph. Let's go on to the next slide. Because you, Dr. Fetzer, and Jim Mars did some of this work and published it. You have the same face. You can go ahead and put these on top of each other. And of course, the faces shouldn't match, but they do because they're identical.
We published it, but it was done by Jack White.
Yeah, right. That one. Yeah, but you pointed it out. Jack did a lot of good work on backyard photos. He really did. And they unfairly criticized him because he wasn't supposedly a photo expert, but he certainly obtained that ability. Anyway, we have David Von Payne, who said, oh, I have found a photograph showing that Lee Oswald leans like that naturally. Well, I noticed the trees were leaning too, so when you fixed the trees, all of a sudden Lee was standing straight up and down. Yeah, he just tilted the photo. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Well, I don't know what this blue is here at all. All right, so we have a problem here that I don't know where that came from. But at any rate, for what you can see, unfortunately, this isn't like this on mine, but what happened is these are arrows, and the arrows have expanded for some reason. And they didn't do that on mine. Sure. What I'm trying to show here are the different cameras. We can't even see the Minox, but that what McAdams said is that the Minox, which is covered by this blue thing so you can't see it, that was just the case. And you had Minox film, you had a Minox case, you had a Minox light meter, but there was no Minox camera to be found. Therefore, Lee never owned one.
How ridiculous can you get?
Adams, yeah.
If you got a Minox case and a Minox light meter and so forth, you have a Minox.
Yeah, I guess he just loved things called Minox, except he didn't want the camera, right?
Stupid.
Now, the Sierra, you can't see that very well, the tube, but you can see it's a nice camera, nice lens, made beautiful photos, okay?
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's down at the bottom here, and I'm sorry about these giant arrows that flip like they did for some reason. It's not that way on my copy. But anyway, you can still see that is a fine camera, well built, well made, and it took fine photos and had, zoom lenses and everything. Nice Russian camera. At the top, very important, the realist. this realist at the top here on the right-hand side, you notice there are 3 lenses. Well, it's amazing what this is about because this is a 3D camera. It took 3-dimensional photos. They went on sale about a year before Lee joined the Marines. Lee told me about this camera, so I can tell you personally about it. You know, my original book was so long that we had to compress and take a lot of stuff out. And this is one of the things that is out. But the way this worked, now, that black stuff above these 3 lenses, that's a case that you can flip down.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Don't
a cover,
be confused
a lens cover.
Right, it's a cover. Also, they had a photograph of this next to a whole bunch of Ruth Payne slides and for her Kodak camera, trying to make it look like maybe, because of course you had to make slides with these. So it's like, I thought very deceptive that they put a stack of Ruth Payne stuff. Just like next to the Minox, they put a luggage tag that said Ruth and Michael Payne, luggage tags next to it. So it puts in people's heads, you know, maybe that doesn't belong to Lee Oswald. Well, they mixed stuff up like that. Anyway, this realist, Lee bought it. It was on sale. He told me he took it all the way to Japan with him. And we have Marina Oswald saying the same thing. In her earliest deposition and talked to the Secret Service, says, yes, this is the realist camera that she said when he came back and visited just shortly, you know, before defecting, so-called defecting, he left this camera, this realist, with his brother.
Did you have to use special glasses to view the photographs it took in 3D?
No, not, actually, yes. You use like what would be like a Viewmaster to put them together.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. The reason he didn't use it very often is it's just difficult to put, you have to put the 2, you know, do the 2 slides. And also it was getting hard to find the film. But Lee told me he didn't want to take pictures when he was in New Orleans. It was very important not to, because I had posed as Marina. Well, I'm going to go into that in the lecture in the conference. But look at the imperial reflex. That's at the lower right-hand corner.
This junk.
Cruddy piece of junk.
It's got an imposing name, but it's a cheap camera.
Very cheap. I mean, Lee wanted
top.
to be a photographer. He didn't want this thing. He never would have wanted it. This is a planted camera. We have all kinds of evidence now that it belonged to the Paynes. To the Paynes. And I'm going to talk about that.
In other words, it belonged to the CIA.
Well, we'll put it this way. At least it was in their possession. It only took 12 photos at a time. This is what you had these little dollar cameras that took 12 photos at a time. You know, I mean, it's really, it's a.
Should see.
It's because they didn't know that Lee wanted to be a photographer when they threw this stuff together. Okay, let's go on now to the next one.
Yeah, they have a little flip top and you look down inside a mirror, if you can remember those.
Well, yeah, well, and on top of it, you had to hold it at the waist. Here we're talking about Charlie's Restaurant. This is a new, this is only 1 year ago. We found this in the National Archives. A man who knew that this, he's deaf and dumb, he's mute, from Monroe, Louisiana, kept going to Charlie's Bar and Restaurant on Carondelet Street. Now here's what's interesting. That was 640 Carondelet. Do you guys know how I am about getting lost? If you read my book, you know, even when I was at University of Florida, I had to have a map because I couldn't remember where I was going. I cannot do it. I get lost constantly. Well, Lee and I did not want to ride the bus home from Riley's, okay, when everybody's on the bus because we couldn't sit together and talk. So Riley's mostly got out at 4:30. So we would wait until 5:30 to take a bus. So between 5 and 5:30, guess where we met? At a place I couldn't miss because Riley's is 640 magazine and Charlie's is 640 Carondelet, straight shot. See, just a few 3 blocks down. So there we met. And here is this mute saying he saw Oswald in the place on many occasions, recalled having seen Oswald in there with a girl. He thought it was from the Louisiana State Library. Well, we talked about every time we met, what library we would meet at. You will see in the records that Lee Oswald, they said, why is he always going to the library on Thursdays? Because we almost always met at the library there near Magazine Street on Napoleon, okay? On Napoleon there on Thursdays. But if we didn't, we would meet at Tulane Library, you see, or at the Louisiana State Library, which I haven't talked about. So he's reading lips. He can't hear all that, but he knows one thing. We talk about libraries, and he must have heard or seen, I should say, interpreted, that I was there from the Louisiana State Library. But it is me. This is someone who's meeting. Now, he said Oswald also met in there with other people who were discussing the assassination of the president. And he was reading their lips, and he wrote down on napkins all this information, gave it to his friend, Mr. Myers. Now, below that, now that may not seem very much new information, but it's nice to see something where Lee is meeting with a girl only 3 blocks from Riley's, okay? And it says in another, further down anyway, that this was always happening at 5 or 5:30, and that was us. Okay, now below are some
Because that was after work.
After, well, yeah, because we couldn't, if we took the bus home right away first, what's going to happen? We didn't have any time for ourselves. So we never, at least 5:30.
Yeah, before we go into the different pictures, let's go ahead and take a quick break. This is the new JFK show.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.
All right, welcome back. Judy Baker, a rock star, and Jim Fetzer, a rock star in his own right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and continue on right where we left off. Go ahead, Judy.
Okay, well, basically, for people who don't know, and we just had it. I hope people who have read me and Lee will give 5-star if they like the book enough over at Amazon, and also Goodreads, because trolls have come over and they said she has no witnesses, she has no evidence, blah blah blah. And this is not true. Besides Ed Haslam, besides all the vetting went through, 38 hours, you know.
Yeah, it's just loaded with it.
Film.
Yeah.
These are some women. So from left to right, we have Claudia Roddick. Now, who is she? She is my landlady's granddaughter, great-granddaughter, who spent lots of time with her grandma, who was Susie Hanover. Now, I named my first child Susie after Susie Hanover because I loved her so much, and so did Lee. She is on record. I've got her email, and she said, Lee was there so often I thought he lived there at my apartment. Okay? So that's a witness we have. It's Claudia Roddick. Now, the next one there is Victoria Hawes, Sulzer, with a big smile on her face. Now, Victoria, when I said that Lee was all the time going over to Dr. Mary Sherman's apartment building, you know, and of course, a lot of that cleanup and everything had to be done afterwards. She is a witness, and she went to school with Lee, okay? He knocked on her door. She only lived a couple doors down from Dr. Mary Sherman on the 2nd floor. And he's asking where Juan Valdez was. And Juan Valdez being a friend of Dr. Mary Sherman's at the time. And anyway, from time to time, Lee would leave a package there to put in the refrigerator. And there are other things. She's going to tell you all about it at the conference. So Victoria is another witness showing that we now have not just my word for it and Ed Haslam's and all that, but we have her word for it that Lee Oswald was going to Mary Sherman's apartment, in the building there. And though she never saw him go into the apartment, he was on the second floor, Valdez's apartment right next to Dr. Sherman's, and with the packages that they picked up and what they were doing with the packages, we can explain what was going on. Next to her is Mary Morgan. She's now Mary Morgan Jenkins. In 2014, in the presence of my publisher, Chris Milligan, she interrogated me as she's driving. We asked question after question because she didn't even though it's on record that she said there was a woman sitting in this car that Lee Oswald, she is sure came in. She had lost all that memory of it. So I said, well, ask me questions. I said, you remember what the house looked like? Because the house today is very dark. Anyway, make a long story short, I told her what color the house was at the time. I told her that the steps that they had now were not as long as they had before in front of the house. She asked, can you remember what was on the porch? She said, I went out on the porch for something. Do you remember? You said you remember seeing me. I said, yes. I said, you went over to something that was big and reddish and big. I thought maybe it was a couch because it was getting dark, sunset. She said that was our old rusty freezer and I had to get something out of the freezer. She was really impressed because nobody knew about that, of course. She asked what direction the car was parked, I told her. She asked what color the car was, I told her. And she asked what about the neighbors across the street? And I said there weren't any. At that time, it was just a pasture, and on and on. So I finally, and even pointed out, because we all then went downtown, and I pointed out where I thought the barbershop was, okay? Because everybody told me it was across the street, and you can see the barber pole across the street. I said, yeah, but we parked there. I said, I remember Lee didn't cross the street to go there. So I said, I'm so confused. And they said, well, maybe your memory's just not that good. Turns out that where we parked was next to the barbershop. It just didn't. And that's why when Lee went around the car, and he didn't cross the street, he went around the car and went in behind me. So I couldn't turn my head to look at, but I knew the barbershop. And sure enough, we had photographs of it. They were ripping it down, and it would have been gone in another few weeks. But we have that. It's in the book, David Ferry, Mafia Pilot. So, and then finally we have Anna Lewis. And Anna Lewis has been faulted, even though she said, yes, we double dated. They said, well, how come you didn't tell anybody, back in 1967? Yeah, they had children. I'll tell you that. That's one reason. They didn't want to say they double dated with us. She and her husband, David. And by the way, David Lewis is on record. He's all over the place in the Garrison investigation. He's finally kicked out for lying about who he thought shot at him. And he was shot at. I read in his own trembling handwriting, but he was sure, at that time, he didn't know who it was. And later, he had made up his mind of who it was. And so he failed the polygraph by stating who he thought it was because he really didn't know. So they kicked him out of that. But the point is that you'll find out all about him in the book, May and Lee. But his wife here was his restaurant waitress at Thompson's Restaurant on St. Charles. And Lee and I met there, and others did too, like Carlos Quiroga and so on. It's in the record. It's in the 26 volumes. I didn't know about any of that at the time. But at any rate, Anna didn't even like me, but she's on record as saying, and this is why sometimes they try to discredit her. She said the first time I saw Lee Oswald was either spring or fall of '62. Boy, did they jump on that. Oh, that meant she couldn't have possibly have met Lee Oswald. But now we have found records that Lee was actually arrested in 1962. And there are others who say that they saw him there in fall of '62. So what are they going to do about that? Anyway, you can find her on YouTube, Anna Lewis, very easy. So these are just some of so we have more witnesses. This is just some of it. for anybody who says I have no witnesses, okay? Besides Ed Haslam, besides Nigel Turner, besides Jerry Hemming, who contacted Nigel Turner when I told him exactly where I saw him in June of 1963, when he claimed he had not been in New Orleans. So I called his bluff on that. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now, recently, some more stuff has come out. When I said that Oxner and Oxner Clinic were involved with Clay Shaw right in the beginning, there weren't any records of that. They had been hidden. Nobody believed me. And we finally found them. And of course, in the book, Me and Lee, you see a photograph of Clay Shaw with Alton Oxner. But I was also saying things like Oxner had been working, of course, out at the mental hospital. Now, the book called, let's see, it's by William Davey, and it's called, what is that book called? I keep wanting to say a different book. But he wrote a book that came out just after I spoke out. But I was on record and had already written it down that Oxner had been out at the mental hospital in Jackson and doing experiments there. And they said, oh, no, you got that from William Davies' book. No, we have the emails and everything shows I mentioned all that before the book came out. Now, on top of that, there was nothing mentioned about Oxner in there was just one thing that 60 Minutes finally found out about Oxner that came out, that Garrison was thinking of arresting him. But everybody said, oh, come on. Now, today, we have so much information, so much more about Oxner and Shaw and all that. But they said, and Weberman said, and everybody said, the last contact that CIA had with them was in the 50s, like 57. I said, oh, no. I said, no. This was right up to date. Well, this record came out in July, and it says that the last contact with Oxner was on the 8th of January. This is hard to see here. That it looks like it's
63.
It is a 60. It's hard to see. It looks like 62 here, but
no, it's 3.
Anyway, it is a 63.
Yeah.
It says 62. It looks like, but it doesn't matter because the last contact with Clinic was on the 8th of November, 63, right after we finished the project. So they're saying close it down, So why is the CIA having anything to do in November of 63 with Oxner's Clinic? Read my book, Me and Lee. Okay, let's go on. So that's a nice thing that came out. Here's another one that came out recently. This is about the Caracas affair, and you need to know about it. On the left-hand side, you're going to see what the Secret Service determined was all this is Lee's handwriting at different times. At the top, you have some phone numbers and so on. Under that, you have the word Caracas and 335 and guns. And with that, under that camera, us, gun, me, watch, her, that's right, and ring, cell. Now, I have in the book, and in Me and Lee in chapters 17 and 18, talking all about this, the gun shipment that came in from Caracas. Here it is in Lee's own handwriting in his own address book. Hey, I don't even have the sketch of my apartment in this particular slide thing, but there's also a sketch of my apartment is in Lee's address book as well. But notice here at Caracas, 335, you think that's the number of guns. That word guns there, according to Secret Service, that's plural. The camera is because we had to take pictures of the guns. You know why? Because that's how you count them. Lee had his Minox, bing, bing, bing. He's taking pictures as they're unloading these. Now, the gun, apparently he had to take a gun along with him at this time, probably to protect the shipment, make sure nobody's going to steal any of the guns. But the watch her is really interesting. See that blot in between? There's between the watch and her. Well, you see it starts to move upward and then it's blotted out. I think that was watch J and I think that was watch me. This is exactly at the time when Lee and I had a falling out. He decided that he just couldn't leave his wife and his little girl, and she's pregnant. And we cried and all that, but he left. And I thought I'd never see him again. And he knew that, of course, I knew all about this. You can read all the details. And David Ferry picks me up. He takes me out there. He wants me to see what happened. But I feel that Dave picked me up and wanted to make sure that I didn't, blow the whistle on anybody or anything. I don't know. But I know one thing, to watch her and that little blot in between, which could have been a J, turned it into a her instead. Watching somebody, it might have been that they were afraid that I might ask or interfere in some way. Now, the ring and cell is really interesting too, because the ring, I believe, there are different interpretations. Nobody knows for sure now. But the fact is that we had these bananas that were brought in. I mean, lots of bananas. And what they did is they emptied the bananas, put the guns in, the rifles, put bananas on top, stuck them on trucks, and sent them all over the place. And where they sent them, of course, were to the paramilitary anti-Castro people. So you can think of that as a ring that they sent them to. And anyway, they went in different directions. And then the cell part, they had, I can't tell you how many bananas to get rid of. And we even have a record of a detective saying that he found that Lee Oswald was trying to sell bananas and fruit all over the place. Well, anyway, for several days, bananas were dirt cheap there in New Orleans, all right? So I mentioned that in the book. But that could mean something else. I don't know. But what we do know is that not only do we have that in his address book, which I didn't even know about until I found this Caracas file, new secret file here, because people said, the critics were saying, look, we don't know of any shipments of guns from Caracas. You just made this up. Where's your proof? I said, well, it's a Delta line. I talked all about that. And, that they went to that port right there near Caracas, picked them up. They said, well, that's just fine, and so on and so forth. But now this record has come out, and here's a part of it. And there's a file number for you. It says there that they were operating out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. They made a trip to Caracas, Venezuela, picked up approximately 753 rifles, all right, and returned to San Juan. And some of these are now have been smuggled in the U.S. Those ended up in Miami. Ours got smuggled in and ended up in New Orleans. Now, we had 335 rifles. I thought there's like 400, but there is the number, I think. And so that's a considerable number of rifles. We're not talking about like 3 or 4. We have these people who would say, oh, yes, we picked up 3 Mannlicher Carcanos, and these are nice rifles here, the FAL. Lee Oswald, we had rifles sticking out of our kazoo. You didn't have to go and buy any from the mail order place or anything like that. I mean, they were everywhere in Dallas and New Orleans and so on. So that's anyway,
great point.
All these rifles coming in. So this is a shipment from Caracas. You have it in his book here, Caracas and the gun. I just love it because we talk about it in the book, me and Lee, in chapters 17 and 18, considerably. It was big. It was a big deal. And something's come out that helps support it. Let's go on to the next one. This, I said that Jack Ruby took his favorite girls to Las Vegas if they slept with him. Some of this has moved around from the way I had it on mine. But anyway, these are files that came out. And it turns out Lee, that in the book, Me and Lee, you'll see, which you can't see it. It didn't come out very well here on the.
It may be a difference that you made up the slides on a Mac or a PC, and Gary's using a PC or a Mac. That can cause the difference.
Yeah, all right. Well, it just could be the way that Gmail downloaded it, But at any rate, we can see most of it. Now, there's Jack Ruby looking very happy. And, of course, I was mentioning on page 108, I remember the page number. On page 108, a mention, they told me how if you wanted to get ahead, if you were a stripper, you had to sleep with Jack Ruby. And if he liked you enough, he'd take you to Las Vegas and you could get in the big time there. And people were saying, oh, come on, he wasn't that important. Now we have these 2 records have come out. One, this is the same 2 sheets. They're on the same report. And it says it's by a reliable source, okay? And it says that they had a Rolls-Royce courtesy car for special guests, and Ruby had this car at his disposal while at the Tropicana motel.
A Rolls-Royce.
Yeah, they put him in a Rolls-Royce. This is how worthless.
How insignificant he is.
That's, yeah, very insignificant.
It
right?
wasn't a Volkswagen Beetle.
This was 1 week before the assassination. He's up there. A week before the assassination. And it says they advised, okay, PCI, you know what PCI means, right? Come on.
Remind me, Judith.
All right. Well, that's a protected confidential informant, okay?
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a confidential informant, and they protect them. They don't want you to know their name. That says PCI. Advised Ruby has used the names Ruben or Ruben and has brought strippers to Las Vegas and has often registered at Tropicana Motel as Mr. and Mrs. while staying in Las Vegas with these girls. So there you are. Another thing that I reported immediately, and they said, oh, come on, he wasn't that important. And here we have, the records have just come out. Okay, let's go on to the next. Sylvia Duran, when I said that she slept with Lee Oswald, we got all kinds of records saying she didn't. Oh, they're all over the place, okay? But basically, the earliest record, and by the way, look, you have a 201 there, and you've got Lee Oswald there, and you've got a 201 on Sylvia Duran. See that? Now, you know what that is. I mean, you know, okay.
Sure, it's CIA file.
Sure, they've got files on them, of course. And the headquarters says, calling attention to paragraphs 3 through 5 of Roten's report. Now, this was dated, it says 26th of May, but the point, the report is about the first information that came out. Says the fact that Sylvia Duran had sexual intercourse with Lee Harvey Oswald on several occasions when the latter was in Mexico City is probably new, but adds little to the Oswald case. The Mexican police did not report the extent of the Duran-Oswald relationship to this
I don't know.
day.
I think that's very, very interesting, Judith. That's very interesting.
All right, because if a couple days later they say, oh, no, this never happened, okay? Nope, didn't happen. And the result of station files checked on Valdez and so on, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, it's part of their report here before they realized, wait a minute. Of course, in page 500 and 501, I said that Lee told me he slept with Sylvia Duran. Boy, did I get slammed for that. Okay, let's go on to the next one. All right, now, then she covers it up, okay? But they let slip this thing, and not once, but 4 or 5 copies we have. It says she got back in the office on the 25th, okay? Seemed quite pleased with her performance because she told them, of course, she didn't, and that the man she slept with, or didn't sleep with, the man she dealt with was blonde and short, you know, and so on. But that's her performance, folks. After all, I mean, imagine her situation. Imagine the situation. I mean, those police picked her up, and we could go into why they did it, and John Armstrong has his reasons for it, you know. But there she is. She's not ugly, folks. She's not an ugly woman. Anyway, she had said she had no fear of confrontation, described her as very intelligent and quick-witted. Now, it took her until oh gosh, let's go on to the next slide. And because Armstrong says David Atlee Phillips put her up to it, arrested her to force her to confess to having a sexual relationship. Well, wait a minute, folks. Okay, say he made this up, you know, just to get her in trouble or something, you know, because they wanted, because she worked at Cuban. Why would he think of that, of all things? Well, anyway, there's an informant, though, Salvador Verzon, who was Phillips' backup as an informant. That is, he said that, yes, she did sleep with Oswald, okay? And here's the thing. He reported that 2 days after the Mexican police beat her up and all that. So he's saying, now, wait a minute, even though she said, you know, she didn't and all that, I know better, and he reports it, all right? To the Mexican police, Duran described an entirely different man as Oswald, and that's what Armstrong tries to use to prove that Harvey never slept with Duran, and Harvey, that's his name for the two Oswalds he's got. He says, my Harvey, I only knew Harvey. Harvey was clueless. Harvey never went to Mexico City, on and on. And by the way, Armstrong refused to interview me. Okay? Also, has never interviewed Robert Oswald face to face. Why? Well, for one thing, I don't go along with what he's saying. I know that there was that Lee hated the name Harvey. And he brings out this school teacher that says, oh, I remember that they called him Harvey. They didn't call him Lee. And I had to laugh because Lee told me that when he was in school, that they would yell Harvey, Harvey at him just to get him to get mad so he'd hit him or get in a fight. That's what they called him. Now, this woman, this school teacher, actually only taught girls in a girls' PE class. She only had him one semester for homeroom. But she says, oh, I remember his name was Harvey, you know. And she said, I took poor Harvey home after a piano fell on him. I had to take him over to Exchange Place. And what do we have? We have Lee's friend there who used to know, said that he was friends with him. And at the Exchange Place, you have, and Armstrong has to admit this, you have Harvey Oswald living there at the same time that Lee Oswald is living there, and you can't get around it. Come on. I mean, it's so ridiculous. So anyway, here he's trying to say that David Atlee Phillips' idea to say that, to get her to confess to sleeping with Lee Oswald, how do you think this thing up and why would it be of use? Well, on November 24th, now Lee has been shot, okay? Now she says that Lee told her he was a communist admirer of Castro. Well, guess what? He would have. He would have, because he's trying to get he's trying to get into Cuba. So he's got to say something like that. That statement was removed on November 26th, okay? But she had already said it. It's too late. They were setting everything up to prove Lee was ready to do Castro's bidding, you see?
Judith, we have about 5 minutes.
Okay, let's go on then quickly. All right. This is one of my cartoons. Damn it, another good file came through. Are you blind? Sorry, boss. It was an honest mistake. I promise it won't happen again. You go through these files as Larry would tell you if he were here, and I'm sure you know. So many of them are duplicates. So many of them are they're not originals. Many have been rewritten. It says they're sanitized. It says, it's just trying to find a needle in a haystack to find anything good. And they only slip through. Okay, let's go on and I'll see. Let's keep going. Just keep going, okay? We don't have time for this. Here's one. When a fake isn't a fake. There's this memorandum that came out, and a lot of people believe it's real, okay? But it's marked confidential instead of secret. That's the one giveaway. It has all kinds of information. It should have been secret. It's supposed to have been written by Rowley to McComb. Now remember, Rowley is the one who said that Lee Oswald slept with Duran, all right? Now here, so they're using somebody that it helps to discredit them also. So here it says all kinds of things about Lee Oswald that, that he'd been trained and all. Let's go on to the next one real quickly, because that one, if you go on to the other pages, you find out they're saying how he was messed up mentally, and they think maybe he's electronically altered when he was at the Minsk hospital because he was there for 11 days. Well, he was there for 11 days for a different reason, and I've got it in the book. For one thing, he had adenoid operation. People get that mixed up with tonsils and think, oh, he had his tonsils grow back in. Anyway, that's another story. Now, here's what we have that the CIA and FBI really got upset about, and this is the fact that you have the application to get in, to go into into Cuba that he made at the Cuban consulate. It's got his photograph and everything. And I wish we had time to say more, but briefly, they had a problem because they did a typewriter match search. They said, oh my gosh, apparently by now they want to try and prove he didn't go there, but they've got this document. So they did a typewriter match search, and unfortunately for them, they found in the trash and other places that yes, this stuff was actually written on the typewriter there in the consulate. So this document was created apparently by the Cubans all by themselves. They can't say that he never was there. So they really wanted to. Let's go on to the next one quickly. I just want to say about the truth, and we don't have time to really talk about this now. This is de Havilland Dove, and next to it you see the blimp station, and that's where Lee and Hugh Ward, they drove there and they got in the Dove. We've got a lot of documents about Schlumberger and working at Hull Field. In 1976, I did anyway, I was a newspaper reporter from 1976 to 81. I went to Hull Field because I knew about it. I knew that Lee went there, and from there went to Houston Airport. And anyway, that's where he got onto the bus. He never went through from New Orleans by bus all the way to Houston. Did not do it. Use this. Now I went there to Hull Field. Security personnel, I wrote this article, this is part of it, and I talk about in there how they have, and I'm going to read this to you. Well, look, and then I'll quit with that. But they use the airport, it says, the Attorney General and Department of Public Safety and many others use the airport at no charge, and they had no records, and anyway, that's what I'm trying to say.
Judith, this was fascinating. This was fascinating. You made so many interesting and important points in passing. We can't wait to have you back again. We're planning to have you return next week.
I can't. I'm going to be. I have to leave every 90 days. You know.
Okay. Well, your next available opportunity to let us know, and we'll plug you back in.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back, Judy. We love you, and we'll see you next time you're available to us. And we
I hope you're interested in what I showed you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was great. It was terrific. Excellent.
And be sure to watch out for Judy's conference coming up in Dallas, Texas. And you want to tell us about it real quick, Judy?
Just go to https jfkdallasconference.com. Okay, and it's November 17, 18, 19. We've got the most incredible 31 speakers. We have Tannenbaum. We have people that, Dr. Wecht, we have Dr. Fetzer. We have many coming in, new witnesses that haven't spoken before.
Yeah, Mary Mormon.
Judith, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. We're very grateful to have you here. We look forward to the next time. Thanks for tonight. Just terrific.
God bless you now.
All right, New JFK show number 164. We'll see you next time.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.